Hello. Hello, we're here. Yes, we are. We're back. Hello, friends. It's Daniel. Hello there. Hello. This is the camera here. Oh, I got the music on. Hang on. Let's fade this music out. Oh, that was not a fade. That was just a cut. There we go. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Daniel Midson-Short here. This, my friends, is my first somewhat impromptu episode of Ask Me Anything, an AMA show that some people choose to do. It was a cool idea that I've had for a little while amid other videos that I've done here and there. And I was actually inspired by a streamer who I like. I can never pronounce his last name. It's Derek Bearsy, I think is how you say it. He's a great streamer. I've been following him for about 2 years, I think, a year and a half, something like that. And he does a lot of AMAs, usually late night ones, where he talks about random topics that interest him and people that he shares with. And I thought, you know what? I want to start doing something similar because it's important, I think, for us, the people who are joined here as part of this channel, to have a sense of community. There's so much content out there right now, but there's not a lot of community. There's not a lot of connection with people. There's not a lot of camaraderie. Can't think of any other C words, but that'll do for now. You get the idea that, yeah, we want to connect with each other. We want to have some friendship, some commonality. So that's what I'm trying to do with this idea. And I know that I start a lot of ideas and they tend to either fade out or they stop after a little while. And I want to definitely be more consistent with one thing, which is providing better value and better connection. And that's what I'm trying to do with this live AMA today and moving forward. So my plan roughly is to try and do these of a Monday afternoon, my time here in California. That will make it Tuesday morning in Australia. It'll also, I believe, make it mid-evening in the UK and also early evening on the East Coast of the US. So I'm figuring for now that is probably the best middle ground time that we can find that will work for all of us here. So my hope is with this show, if I do it consistently over a couple of weeks, rather than like I was doing with my Self-Improvement Saturday episodes where I would just come on and kind of bombard you with the topic, we just kind of chat. And I have topics here, things that I'm going to talk about myself, things that I'm interested in or that are happening to me in life and whatever. And I will share those if no one else has questions or comments or whatever. But my hope is if I keep doing these for several weeks and months consistently at the same time, that some of you will want to join in and be part of this. And you can give me feedback whether this is the best time to be doing it, whether I should be doing it midday or at other times of the day or whatever. There's no rules here, but I'm just trying to figure out what could work best. So that's where we're at. So yes, if you're watching this later, I appreciate you if you couldn't join us live. But if you can, around 3 or 4 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I don't know what the hell that time is in Australia and the UK, but that's where most of the people are who we connect with on this channel seem to be in those countries. I know there's some in Europe and Asia and different places as well. And I think that should manage the time zone. So if you do have something that you would like to ask, a question that maybe I can help you to think through or talk through, be happy to do that. If you have a comment, some feedback, something you would like me to know, I'm happy to read that as well. And I'm going to try through my little streaming service here to actually put them on the screen if people have comments. And I'm not expecting any for this first episode, to be honest. So there may not be any, and that's fine. No problem at all. But as time goes on, hopefully more and more people will comment and want to share things and ask questions, and we can get some discussion going. Even if it's just me talking and you typing in the chat, that's totally fine with me. I'll try to do my best to make it work. So yeah, that's the idea here with AMA, Ask Me Anything, and this is episode 1 of God knows how many, but my goal is to keep it going and to try and be consistent. Even if we just do 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, we'll see how long the show goes for. Today I'm going to aim for, 30 to 40 minutes or something like that. And we'll go from there. So cheers to that. That's right. I'm having a mineral water today because, well, number one, it's a Monday. Otherwise, I'd be having a beer. And number two, because It's getting towards summertime here. It's getting warm. Finally, we here in California, we have this thing called the May gray and the June gloom. If you haven't heard of that, you can Google it. It's basically if you live near the coast where we live here in Southern California, most of the month of May and June, you just get a lot of grey clouds covering the sky, which I know boohoo for me. Poor Daniel has to live in California. I know it's awful, right? But I think that if you live here, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It gets very grey and the doldrums set in when it's a grey day all the time. And finally, the sun's coming out. So getting a bit of sun here. So, yes, so that's what we're going to talk about. No, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about other topics that I have here. But hey, we have our first question. Let me see if I can put this on the screen. Does this work? Let me see. There we go. Mr. Be Kind. Wow. What do you think of Bitcoin? Ay. My friend, that is a big question. Thank you for asking that one. That was a good one right off the bat for AMA question number 1. You are officially the first question on the first episode. Maybe the last question today. I don't know. We'll see. What do I think of Bitcoin? Whew. I'm not an expert. I'm not really a financially savvy person, I would say, by any means. But I do have a little Bitcoin story, actually. And this was back in 2013, 2014, something like that. I actually started or opened up a Coinbase wallet. And at that stage, I had a chance to buy a Bitcoin. I believe it was for about $50. I remember at the time thinking, I don't know if it was a friend of mine or something. That was when I was around the startup world. There was a lot going on with that in my life. If you've watched any of my videos about that, where I was trying to be a startup, tech billionaire, and which was a failed experiment and dream. But anyway, someone in that world somehow told me that, crypto is the next big thing and Bitcoin was amazing, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think it was 2014. It would have been about, so 10 years ago this year, if that's right. And I remember I had an opportunity to buy one, and I remember just thinking, what the hell is this? What do I do with it? I can't spend it on anything. And I think at the time there was something in the news about there was a hairdressing salon, like a men's salon or something, that was accepting Bitcoin as payment. So it was really innovative back then. And I remember I had the opportunity to buy a Bitcoin. I think it was for around $50, and I never did. Ouch. Yeah, so there you go. What do I think about it? I think it's an interesting idea. I'm not sure if you have opinions. If you want to be kind, if you want to put them there in the chat too, I'm happy to hear what you have to say about it. I think that it's always good to have alternative options for payment and bartering. From what I've read of the world of finance, I actually started listening to an audiobook called Money in One Lesson a couple of months ago, trying to up my financial knowledge and skills. And the idea of just having one type of currency in the world or one type of trading platform, I don't think is good for anyone, because inevitably people just start controlling it and manipulating it and taking their little pieces of it. And that's probably what's happened with the current financial system. Again, I'm very ignorant of this, so I'm not going to pretend to know what I'm talking about. But it seems like when you only have one option, it gets a little bit unfair in some respects. So having alternative options to that, where people can pay with different types of currencies or different payment methods, I think is a great way to go. So I hope for you, it's been a good investment. I know it's been very volatile the last couple of years. I don't really know that I would be keen to put any of my money into it right now, but I'm sure in the next 15, 20, 30 years, it will become the new way that we bank. One of the interesting things that I always talk about when you think about money, it's crazy these days how little cash we actually use. I have a local store just up on the corner of my street here, and they are very resistant to using any kind of, credit cards or anything like that. So whenever I go there, I try to use cash. And it's one of the very rare times I've got to find some cash and go and use it if I need something from that store. And it's a funny feeling because, hardly anywhere do you need cash anymore. And they give me change, and then I've got all these coins in my pocket. But it's so rare today. Most money is just an idea, right? It's just a concept. It's not real in a sense. You're just essentially trading whatever effort and time and energy and ideas that you have, and someone else is paying you through a virtual form, usually, whether it's Venmo or it's PayPal or it's cash in the bank or whatever, but it's a bunch of zeros in your account. Then you have that value, and then you trade it on to someone else, and actually nothing physically changes hands when you think about it. It's insane. It's crazy, but your value gets transferred through this currency they get the value and you get the dollars in the account, and then you transfer that onto someone else, and nothing actually exchanges hands. So yeah, it's kind of amazing in a way. And it's kind of freaky that we are so dependent on that as a culture. But who knows? Maybe in 20, 30 years, we'll have a totally new way of exchanging and trading and bartering and whatever. So there we go. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you being here. I'm glad that you're here. And yeah, hopefully we can see you at a future AMA if you have any more comments or questions. And again, would love to hear your opinion on the whole thing as well. All right. So while we're seeing if anyone else has a question, thank you again. Be kind. I would like to talk about something that we've already talked a little bit about the idea behind the AMA show and what I want to do. Again, it's going to be just a random kind of coupling of ideas and things that I'm talking about. There's no presentation, there's no kind of system to it. It's just a chance for us as a community to chat. One of the things I do want to share, which might be very obvious to those of you who've been around for a while, is that I look a little bit different. And I did post about this on the YouTube channel, but in case you didn't notice, ta-da, I have, well, it's actually not hair, it's a head tattoo. That's right. It's not quite finished yet, but essentially you can see I now have a hairline, which I didn't have for many years. I was a very bald man. And if you watch my older videos, you can see my hair slowly going back year by year until it's just a faded glory, a little tuft at the back of my head. And eventually my darling wife said, I think it's time. I think it's time to shave it off. Well, about a year and a half ago, I met someone who actually had a similar amount of baldness to me and had a head tattoo. And it looked really, really good. It actually looked like he had essentially what I'm going for here, which is a shaved hair look, which gave some sort of semblance of style. And I really liked it. I thought, wow, this is kind of a cool look and it's very low maintenance. And I had already started shaving the sides of my hair because the top was completely bald down. And so I started to look into it. And for a long time, honestly, I was very self-conscious about, well, what will people think? You know, if I get this done, will it be bad? Will it be embarrassing? Will people judge me? All the things that we go through when we make a life change. And just like anything in life, I think eventually the pain of not doing it is worse than the pain of what could happen, what could happen in terms of a failure. And when my wife and I were away recently in Barcelona, I just decided, you know what? I'm going to go for it. What the hell? Worst case, I can get it lasered off and I can be a bald man again, but I'm going to go for it. So about 6 weeks ago, I think it was now, maybe even a bit longer, I had my first session. And it was quite funny when I did the first session. I had, it was like way up the top here. It was like very far back because I was really scared about it looking, excessive. And the lady who was doing it was like, I think that's a bit far back. I think we should go more forward. And she said, okay, I'll go where you want to go. So I literally had like half a head of tattooed hair. And I had that for about 2 weeks. And then I went back and she said, why don't we move it just a bit forward? So I think it came to about here. And I had that for 2 weeks. And then about 2 weeks ago, I said, just bring it forward even more. So it's funny how your perception of yourself, the way you see yourself, is so exaggerated compared to everyone else, because I was terrified that everyone would notice, and yet hardly anybody did, right? Hardly anyone even cares or notices any change about you unless it's something really drastic. They don't notice. And I've talked about this in other videos too, with the red face and things like that, that we worry so much about what people think of us. The irony was that even as, my hair was magically regrowing, right? I was suddenly getting this hairline. No one even noticed. And the people who did were actually very complimentary. They were nice about it. I'm sure there's people who rolled their eyes and laughed and thought, oh, he's stupid, he's vain, why is he doing this, whatever. But you know what? Who cares? I went for it. And I have to say, it has made me feel better about my appearance. I think the worst thing about being bald is that you really have no choice, right? I mean, I know today you can go and get a hair transplant, or you can have a hair system or piece or whatever. And I never went down those routes just for different reasons. I didn't feel like they were a good option for me. But this idea of SMP, scalp micropigmentation, it appealed to me because at least it gave me a style, if you like, a little bit of an appearance of, okay, well, clearly he keeps his hair short and it's styled. And so I decided to go for it. So yeah, so for those of you who are wondering, if you have noticed in my last couple of videos, I've slowly had this hair growth returning on the top of my head. It actually isn't, my friends. It's a tattoo. So the sides is real. If you can see here on the camera, the sides up to about here is real. And then the tattoo takes over in the middle. And I still have one more session to go where they're just going to fade and feather the front. So it should look nice and soft. So there's still one more session to go. And then I should be settled. And I believe about every 5 years, I just have to get it touched up, like just darkened a little bit to keep it balanced. And there you go. And I have a somewhat of a hairline. The nice thing is too, it sort of frames your face differently. If you don't have hair for a bald man, you probably know this. It's like your head just keeps going. There's no end to it. Whereas guys with hair, it sort of frames their face better. And so that's what I was going for here. So anyway, I thought I would share that and tell you that that's why that's one of the reasons of why I've been off camera too, honestly, is because my head was quite red when it got tattooed initially. And, I was very self-conscious about it, but I thought it's time to be open about it. And yeah, I'm happy with it so far. So we'll see how it looks. All right. We have a couple of other questions. Mr. Wildfire, let me see here. How goes the YouTube career? Are you still able to fully support yourself from it, or is it mix and match with speaking gigs, etc.? Good question. So I have never actually supported myself from this YouTube channel. Right now, I believe it makes me about $150 a month, give or take, depending on the month. Some months it goes higher if one of my videos takes off a bit. I think the most I've ever made in 1 month was like $260 from my YouTube channel. I get a lot of comments today saying, why aren't you bigger? Why isn't the channel more popular? You should have millions of viewers, etc., which I very much appreciate. That's very sweet of people to say that. And I'm hoping one day we grow to that point. But the reality is this channel really isn't a vehicle for me to have as a full-time career. Maybe one day, I don't know. I don't really enjoy being a content creator or a speaker full-time. I actually have a full-time career. I work for a consulting company that does business coaching and training outside of my YouTube career and my professional speaking. There was a period in probably about 2018, 2019, where I almost went full-time with my professional speaking. I was doing a lot of keynote speaking. I did a TEDx talk that got me a bit of acclaim, and I was starting to get a lot more gigs. But even with that, I found that I was not enjoying the speaking element as much because I was just spending all my time hustling for gigs. I remember I was always calling and emailing and networking and doing all this stuff instead of actually speaking. And I remember I was getting on stage like 3 or 4 times a month at that stage, getting paid pretty well, sometimes like $1,000 a speech. But I wasn't actually enjoying the speech because I was thinking of it as income and as a transaction. And so that was a good lesson for me. And I realized that with YouTube as well. I really started to double and triple down on the YouTube channel during COVID because I couldn't speak. I couldn't actually get out and do any speeches. But around end of 2019 into 2020, before COVID and lockdown started, I had started to taper off my speaking career from being full-time, and I'd gone back to coaching and training and consulting as a career. I also, for a couple of years, ran a marketing agency. It was a boutique content writing and SEO agency because that was one of my skills, was writing. And I also have a blog, which you guys have probably seen. But yeah, I really didn't want to be a professional speaker full-time because the ones I'd met, they didn't really have a great life, to be honest. They're constantly hustling for gigs. They're having to sell products to the audience. And you've probably been to those events where someone speaks for whatever, half an hour, and then they're like, oh, buy my program, my coaching training, and it's only whatever, normally $700 today, it's $499.99 or whatever. I hate all that crap. I do not want to be that kind of speaker. I want to go in there, I want to deliver the most value that I can to that audience, give them a great time, and then leave. That to me is the best thing. The person who pays me is the event, right? And that's where I get paid. And so I didn't really admire and I didn't want to emulate the life of the people who were professional speakers. And so it was kind of the same with YouTube. And yes, I know YouTube has this real, I don't know, appeal. If you're like, oh my God, you could be famous, you could, travel the world, you can whatever, you can make an impact on the world, all those kind of things, which are probably true. But you also have to really play the game. You have to make sure you're trend jacking. You have to make sure that you're really keeping up with what's current. And you'll notice that with a lot of the self-improvement YouTubers and people like that, there tends to be almost like a pattern. They all hang out with each other on videos and they're all cross-promoting and there's all these kind of collaborations happening. And then they're all talking about the same topics over and over and over again. And as I've talked about in my videos, that's never been something that I wanted to do. Even if you go back to my very first videos where I did book reviews, I was just me like this, talking in a room, doing what I was doing, getting excited about nerdy personal development ideas. I wasn't trying to ride the trends or whatever. So yeah, so long story short, YouTube career still goes. It's still going to this day. It's making me a little bit of money. Honestly, all the money I make from YouTube, I usually spend on books anyway, which you can see behind me. So that's my little fortune back there. But yeah, we shall see. Time will tell if it actually grows beyond this. And, my hope would be one day it can be an additional source of income, maybe help us to pay our mortgage, maybe give us some time to travel. My ultimate dream in life would be to be able to fly business class around the world via my YouTube or my speaking income. So someone would either pay for me to fly business class or I have the money to fly. That's my ultimate dream. And until then, I'll keep doing it on my own and keep working my career and keep doing this on the side. So thank you, Wildfire. Appreciate the question. Great one. Mark W. Do you miss Australia? Oh, that's a good question. Actually, would you believe I'm going back to Australia at the end of next week? So this is a good time for this question. Yes, I do. In some ways, there's certain things about Australia I miss. I really miss, obviously, my family. My friends, not as much because I've made good friends here now, but I still, I have a great connection with a lot of my old friends. I do find at times the American culture just doesn't have the same sort of, I don't know what I want to say, idiosyncrasies as Australians. Aussies have a certain, especially sense of humor that is hard to explain unless you're part of the culture. We have a kind of a dark, sarcastic edge to us. And I think sometimes it just sort of goes over Americans' heads. So there are times where I want to crack a joke or I want to say something and I just think, oh man, an Aussie would love this right now, but it's just it's not going to land here in America. So yeah, there's things I definitely miss. I miss Vegemite. I miss meat pies, all those kind of things. They have very nice coffee in Australia as well, nice food. So, and it is a beautiful place. The things I don't miss about Australia, which I've talked about in different videos over the years, is the culture of Australia is a very moderate culture. It's very much about towing the line, staying the same in your life. And there's this thing called the tall poppy syndrome. If you look it up, it's actually a real psychological term. And the idea is that, if all the poppies grow in the field and one grows higher than the rest and they cut off the head. And that's kind of the culture of Australia in a way where, not in a nasty way, but people don't want you to succeed more than the average, especially not more than them, but they also don't want you to succeed beyond a certain point. So if you have aspirations or goals or ambitions and you want to do anything that's sort of out of the ordinary realm of like have a career, have a family, buy a home, all those type of things, it just doesn't go well. Like people question you, why are you doing that? You should be happy with what you've got. Why don't you settle down? Why don't you do this? And there's actually a lot of early videos on my channel. If you go back and watch like the ones from like 2019, 2020, you'll see a lot of that, me kind of grappling with that idea and trying to overcome it for myself because it was kind of built into my psyche in a lot of ways because it is part of our culture. So that's probably the thing I don't like about Australia is that and no one says it explicitly. I can't explain it. You have to live there to experience it. But it's almost like if you want to be something more than what you are, you want to develop yourself, you want to grow, you want to actualize, you'll be kind of criticized or you'll get the side eye about it, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's a weird culture in that way. And I think for me anyway, when I first moved to America years and years ago, 14 years ago now, I remember having this feeling like, oh, this place feels different. And the difference was that I was kind of free to express my ambitions. Now, America has a lot of bad things about it as well. I'm not pointing those, not turning a blind eye to those things. There's definitely a lot of downsides to living in the US, but I think for me and my personality, it definitely suits me more. And so I'm very grateful to be here. Having said that, I'm going back this week for the first time in a year and a half. I'm going to visit family. It's one of my brother's 40th birthdays. Well, I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. So it's one of my younger brother's 40th birthday. So I'm very excited about that. And it's my grandmother's 89th birthday as well. So I'm going to get to see her and spend some time with them. And it is wonderful to just see everyone in person and hang out and, watch all the dynamics. So yes, I do miss Australia, but I'm also very grateful for the life that I have here. Great question. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Wildfire, you are on fire here. Let me see. I really believe having a well filled out quality channel that shows a clear dedication to quality information will always attract an audience. Einzelganger and Kirk, oh goodness, I can't say that name. Yes, I agree, Wildfire. I've actually had comments from a lot of people, some people I've talked to in the past about Einzelganger as being an example of similar to my philosophy and my style. That is definitely something that I aspire to be like. I love his sort of, what I want to say, like low showmanship. He's not trying to impress. He's just sharing quality ideas. Yeah, Kurz Gugs. I can't even say that. With that second one that you've got there, I haven't actually watched, but I will check it out. I'm assuming it's sort of in a similar vein. So you said, I know you say you want to move away from men's health topics, but there's always an audience for guidance on the shared human existence, especially from old fogies like you. Thanks. Yes, I'm a bit of an old fogey. I'm in my mid 40s now, 46 actually. And yeah, it's not that I want to move away from those topics per se. I think at times, like the problem with sites like YouTube is that they reward you for doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? And that's what I was talking about earlier about the idea of like you see them, sort of these self improvement people, and you know who they are. They're always doing the same topics. So there's no real kind of variety in what they're doing. And bless them if they can do that. They can just talk about the same thing over and over. But I don't know, I get bored of it. I need new development in my life. So that's something that I think for me, I still have a bunch of books actually down the bottom there that I'm reading and rereading about men's challenges and issues. So yeah, I think I will continue to share ideas around that, but I want to expand out. And I'm really grateful that people have been open to that idea. That last video I did just recently about looking at some weird spiritual ideas and stuff, people seem open to it. So maybe we'll combine that with some men's issues and then general personal development. And yeah, and we'll have some old fogey wisdom. So yeah, absolutely. What'd you say? That's UK culture too, putting others down. I feel like it destroys creativity. Yeah. So wildfire, it's interesting, like that tall poppy syndrome, right? It seems to be a Commonwealth thing. I think it does stem from the English culture initially, like that idea of not showing off, not standing out. I know in some other cultures too, they have another name for it. It seems to be the Commonwealth name is like the tall poppy syndrome, or essentially just not aspiring to be more than anyone else is. So that's the kind of theme there, and it's very covert. It's very tacit is probably the word for it. It's subtle. It's something that people don't really explicitly say to you, but if you start to push too much, they will question you, they will criticize you, and they will encourage you not to take too many risks. So, yeah, it's a shame that is part of the cultures, but it seems to be the reality that we all live in. So, interesting stuff. But yeah, thank you, my friend. That's great to get some comments. Wow, we've got some great comments here today. Thank you, Be Kind. Thank you, Wildfire. And thank you, Mark W. Great questions. Appreciate you all being here. And this is going better than I thought. I thought I would literally be talking to myself. So hopefully you're liking this. And if this time of day and evening and morning works for everybody, maybe we can do this weekly. It'd be amazing to have the same group and there. And yeah. So one thing I would love to ask, if anyone would like to type in the chat and comment, is what was the video that you found my channel from? Do you remember the first video or one of the first videos that you watched that actually made you think, this guy might be worth listening to? What was it about it, or what was the topic that made you think, this is what I want to listen to, or this is what I want to be part of? Because I'm always curious about that. I'm creating it on my side from my experiences, but I want to know what grabbed you from your side. So if you want to type that in the chat, that'd be amazing if you're here. In the meantime, sorry, my wife is just messaging me something. Okay, nice. So she's heading home soonish. So it's almost 5 o'clock here. So yeah, we'll chat for a little bit longer. But again, yeah, if you have something specific that brought you to this channel, if you were searching for something and you found one of my videos or it randomly popped up, I'm just curious to know, because it's always good to know what's grabbing people's attention. So let's talk to kind of like lean on from Mark, you said it was a book review, but I can't remember which book. That's okay. There's quite a lot of them. No problem at all. Well, I'm glad that you're here, Mark. And yeah, I do like doing book reviews occasionally. I found sometimes it's almost like, what do I want to say? It's almost like I'm encouraging people not to read the book sometimes. Like I'm always trying to say, hey, read it for yourself, but I want to give you my insights. The other thing that with book reviews is selfishly, if I create that, I can then go and rewatch my own video and remember what the hell that book was about. So there's kind of a bonus there. So yeah, that's cool. Wildfire, it was how life changes in your 30s. Okay. Yeah. 34, moved back home from Canada and was going through unemployment stint, feeling like I had no idea what the hell I was doing. My friend, that is life. That is being in your 30s. Yep. We've all been there many times, whether it's a relationship change, it's a change of location, change of career, sometimes by choice, sometimes it's forced upon us. We all go through it. So, yeah, that video, it's funny how it resonated with people, because I think one of the things that I try to espouse is the idea that life doesn't have to be this incredible, massive success. I'm not saying you shouldn't aspire to it. You shouldn't try to be this incredibly, fully actualized, amazing person. But at the same time, the ordinary, everyday growth and development that you have, that actually is the reward, I believe, or that's what I've come to understand. So even you going through that time and not knowing what the hell you were doing and being unemployed, that was causing you to grow in a way, because it was putting pressure on you. I think it was Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle. I was reading in one of his books, A New Earth. What's he saying here? It was a really good comment. He said, what do you say? All life forms need obstacles and challenges in order to evolve. All life forms need obstacles and challenges in order to evolve. So there you go. Yeah, that's exactly what you were going through, obstacles and challenges so that you could evolve. So I'm glad that video resonated for you. We contacted you a few years ago. We spoke on video chat, and then occasionally I'd check in. Oh, we did. Oh, okay. Oh, my man. Sorry, I I didn't recognize you from your username. Oh, okay. There we go. Well, I hope you're doing well. I'm glad that we got to chat. Yeah, I have done that a few times. I've actually if people reach out to me and say, can we chat? I'll jump on and try and have a chat with you. And I don't espouse to have any answers, but I'm really glad to listen and support you in what you're doing. And yeah, I'm really glad that we were able to do that and connect, my friend. It means a lot that you're still here and that it resonated enough for you to connect. So hopefully you're doing a lot better than you were. Really cool to hear from you there. All right. Well, this is really cool. Thank you for everyone's comments, and great to have you all here. I can see there's 5 people. Fantastic. So, Mark, you said, do you study at uni, or did you study at uni? I have the most checkered career path in the world. So I did a business/hospitality management diploma. I never did the degree. So it was like the 2-year version when I was 20 years old or 21 back in Australia at TAFE. I don't know if you guys, anyone who lives in Australia, you know what that is. It stands for Technical and Further Education. In fact, I don't even know if they have that anymore, but this was way back when. So I did that. And right back then, one of my ambitions was actually to open a restaurant, to potentially become a restaurant manager and owner. And, I like the idea of sort of, all the mystique of the status of having my own restaurant. That was one of my dreams when I was very young. So I went through the motions of doing that, did business management and hospitality management. And I got to the diploma level, which was 2 years in. And then I had an opportunity to actually work with an owner of a restaurant. It was a brand new restaurant. He was the chef owner, and he employed me to be his manager and to open the restaurant. And so I decided to delay my next 2 years of college, which was when I was supposed to go to do a university degree, to actually work in that restaurant and manage it. So I got to start it from scratch. We got to build it. I got to set it all up. I got to hire all the staff, fire some of the staff, work with all the different reps and all the different things, the marketing. I did a ton of work in the background. And then, after about 2 years of that, I just completely burned myself out on that industry. And I realized, hell no, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I never went back to that world. And that started me on the path actually of coaching and consulting, because a girl that I was dating at the time actually was doing a business coaching course. She was a junior consultant, and she was doing a business coaching course. And I literally just started reading her notes one night. I was at her house. And I thought, this is really interesting. I'm kind of interested in this because I'd always loved personal development, and that led me down that path. So I ended up going into business coaching, business consulting, and I did all private courses and things, and then somehow talked my way into a coaching consulting role as a junior, and the rest is history. So long story short, no, I never went to uni. I never went to the actual university to get my degree, but I did get my business diploma. And I think, honestly, in a lot of ways, the life experiences I had were more valuable than, sitting in a classroom and studying them. So I'm grateful for how it turned out. But I've always said, and I say to my wife, Lauren, very often, maybe when I'm, 55 or 60, I'll go to college and finally get my degree in psychology or something and become like a therapist or do something like that to give back to people. So who knows? Maybe I will go to college or uni one day as well. Wildfire, what made you make the leap to move country in your 30s? It was easy for me to do in my 20s, but the thought of loving country in my mid 30s, I'm guessing leaving. Yeah, thought of leaving my country in my mid 30s is terrifying. Yeah, so long story short, I was married to, God, how do I explain this? So I was living in Australia. I was married to an American who had moved over with me. We got married, not my current wife, this was in the past. And so we lived there for several years, didn't really work out there. And so we decided to move her back to the US. She had moved over with me, and I decided to move to the US. And honestly, I was 30 years old. So I was right on the cusp of 30. And I remember thinking, I've got to do this now before life gets any more settled, because a lot of my friends were having kids. There was talk about buying a house. My career was growing, but I was definitely getting to that stage where I was like, well, do I want to do this? Do I want to, become more of a manager, whatever? And so I remember talking to my friends and family, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go do this for 2 years. If it all falls flat, if I fall flat on my face, I'll be back. But I'm going to give it a shot. And as soon as I arrived in the US, I just felt like this is the place for me. So I was very fortunate, obviously, having been married to an American, that I had the availability of a green card. So I know how lucky and fortunate I was for that. It was just a happenstance of having been married to someone who had that citizenship. But it ended up that I could stay on my own after we split up several years after that. So yes, so that's how I ended up doing it. But I remember it being terrifying because I did have some of my life set up, especially my friends group, especially my routines. I had a home. I was renting. I didn't own it, but I had all my stuff I had to sell. I remember selling hundreds of CDs and DVDs and all my books and giving my clothes away and pots and pans and all those things. And that's actually when I became a bit of a minimalist, because I had to, let go of a lot of the earthly possessions and start over. So it was a good life experience in that way. So, but yeah, man, it's the older you get, it gets terrifying. You start to think, oh, I'm a bit comfortable here. And if I had to do it in reverse now and go back to Australia, I don't know if I could do it, because I really love our home and our life here. And, obviously with my wife, we're established in our own way. So yeah, so if you're thinking about doing it again, it's a bigger risk definitely as you get older, but still possible. So I think in my 30s, I try to consider and control all the variables I can't control, worrying about which country, how expensive it is everywhere. Yeah, there's a lot of things to consider. It's not as simple as, oh, I'll just move here. You definitely, for sure, you got to think about a lot of things. But hey, as I've said, if the pain of not doing it becomes greater than the pain of doing it, or the pain of potentially failing, then it's the right thing. So you'll figure it out. All right, cool. Well, there's one more thing I do want to talk about today, just briefly. And I kind of mentioned in that last video that idea of when I was taking a little hiatus from YouTube, and the topics that I want to really lean into as time goes on. And what I'm noticing as I'm reading, as I'll show you, I brought them out here to show you. So I'm reading A New Earth right now, by Eckhart Tolle. I actually read that book years ago and I didn't really understand it. I think I'm finally getting it. I'm reading Power vs. Force by David Hawkins, which is a heavy book, if you've ever read that. I'm reading a channeled text called Resurrection, which is a very interesting topic. Check out some channeled text stuff. It's basically like the idea that someone is channeling other people's thoughts and stuff through them. And I'm also reading a book about the magic of manifesting. So I'm out there, man. Oh, and of course, and some Emerson, some Ralph Waldo Emerson, just to top it off. So you get a feel for the stuff I'm reading right now. It's very different to anything I've read, and it's sort of expanding my brain in ways I hadn't thought before. So I'm kind of excited to share, I don't know if the word is less practical things than I have in the past, but definitely more kind of holistic things as part of my development. And I wanted to share this actually. I'm going to put this on screen for a second, if this works. There we go. This is something really cool that I just came across as part of the Power vs. Force book. This is the what's he call it? It's not the hierarchy. It's I think it's levels of consciousness. It's called. This is David Hawkins. And this is something I really recommend checking out for yourself. You can just find it on Google. Just type in levels of consciousness. And it just shows you how you develop as a person from a spiritual perspective, from shame and guilt and apathy all the way through grief, fear, desire, anger, pride. And as you get up, you can see they start to become more kind of positive. So courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, and then enlightenment, which is way at the top. So this is the kind of stuff I've been thinking and learning about. And I would say for me, what's interesting, the reason I wanted to share this was because when I started this YouTube channel, I think I had a lot of fear. I definitely had a lot of desire. So I was down in that lower part, down in the middle of the 100 to 125. And then as time went on, I started to move up into pride and courage and neutrality, which is where you're very level in life. And now I'm starting to have that willingness, that openness to learn and to grow in different ways. And it took me to my mid 40s to get there. So I wanted to share that because I think that's part of why I've been away a little time from YouTube, is because I was getting a bit bored with those topics that were really driven by fear or desire, and I was wanting to look at something different. So hopefully, the new topics that I talk about around spiritual ideas, like around ego and consciousness and detachment, and having a sense of love and all those kind of things. Hopefully, they're not too woo-woo for all of you, but they actually have some appeal as well. So right now I'm working, and I actually just wrote a piece on my blog, which I can share here. I think I can. Let me see. If you don't know my blog, this is it here. Can I share my screen? How do I do it? The joys of live. Here it is. All right. Can we see that? I don't know. Can you guys? This is my blog here. And this is the blog that I just wrote, How to Have a Healthy Ego. So this is going to be the basis of the next couple of videos that I'm going to do. So there's a lot of stuff in here that I've been reading and researching. I've read a bunch of books about it. I had in the past as well, but now I'm starting to go into it. So you can see, there's a lot of stuff about ego strength and ego and spirituality and ego problems, and can you kill your ego, and the ego versus the higher self, and even some of my struggles with an unhealthy ego. So there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. So that's what we're going to be talking about, and I think that's going to be interesting to get into as well. So there's some really cool topics coming up in the next couple of months as well. I'm going to take a bit more time with each of these. So I was getting in the habit, I think, of creating videos and just kind of dumping them out. Like I'd have a couple of ideas, I'd write them on my notepad, and then I just kind of, spill them out in video format and do some edits. I really want to spend some time on these and have a quality aspect to them. So they may take me a little bit longer, and hence why I want to do these kind of AMA, discussions, which are a bit more free form as well, and hopefully build a sense of community. So, would you say they're Wildfire? Yeah, Jung and Alan Watts have a lot of good stuff on the ego, definitely. Yeah, I read a lot of Jung like 10 years ago, and I think I partially understood it, so I need to go back and reread it. I almost need like Jung for Dummies or something just to refresh that. I know Freud had his own version, which I wrote about in that article, but there's a lot of really good stuff. And actually that book, A New Earth, which I keep seeming to talk about, it is very much about ego, as well as some of David Hawkins' stuff. Power versus Force talks about ego from different perspectives as well. Our world is very driven by people's egos, including our own. So it's very eye-opening when you start to realize how much of your life is not really you, but is your ego, your sense of who you think you are, driving a lot of your fears, your desires, your anger, your sense of victimhood, all those kind of things. So anyway, so I wanted to share that because I think that's where I'm heading as a person, and hopefully that's of interest to you. It's funny with this channel that, as I've evolved, I think the audience and the people who have joined me on the journey, you being one of them, have evolved as well. So it used to be much more around, like I was saying, not caring what people think, and just living your best life for you and all this kind of stuff. And now I'm starting to get into more of the realms of, can you let go of your ego, and can you have more consciousness and awareness and detachment and all those kind of things? And where's your level of consciousness at? So who knows, maybe in 15, 20 years, I'll be Guru Dan, sitting here with a big beard and my head tattoo, be meditating on stream. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But so there we go, my friends. Well, I think this is a good time to end. We're right on 5 o'clock my time. I hope this has been useful and insightful for you. Thank you so much to everyone who had questions and comments there. It was really cool to have a couple for the first AMA episode. I really appreciate all of you being part of this community. As I said in the beginning, I think this is something I would like to do every week, even if we just get a little group going and we connect. I would love for us to build a bit of a sense of community because that is really an important part of growing and developing. It's not just learning on our own, but it's having a sense of connection with others, even if it is at a distance. So, yeah, if you can hang around each week, I'm going to try to do Monday afternoons. I haven't decided if it'll be 4 or 3 o'clock my time, but I'll be online around that time. If you miss it, you can always comment in the comments as well. But I'll see you next week and appreciate you till then. So thank you, Wildfire. Cheerio to you too, mate. All the best. It's so good to hear from you and hope that you're doing better and glad that we could connect those few years ago. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.